Currently, there's a shortage of physicians. So as there have been less and less physicians, especially going into primary care, there's been a rapid growth of advanced practice providers, specifically for NPs and PAs.
I believe that as part of this program, our APPs will not only come out more competent, but better able to articulate how they can help patients and serve a very vital role in the healthcare team.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Nursing Insights podcast. My name is Stephanie and I'm a registered nurse practicing in the state of New Jersey. Getting right to it, the state of healthcare right now is tough, to say the least. Let's just say that the nursing shortage does not spark joy. We can sit in that and stew in it for a while, but we can't live in it forever. Things are changing. So join me as your host as I partner with the New Jersey Collaborating Center for Nursing to hear from nurses across the state about their experiences, trials, and triumphs in the nursing profession.
Today, we're diving into a conversation that's especially relevant for nurse practitioners and advanced practice providers entering the workforce. We're talking about the transition to practice, what it looks like, why it matters, and how we can better support new NPs and PAs as they begin their careers. Joining me are two incredible guests who are leading the way in this area. Dr. Dodi Iannaco, lead nurse practitioner for virtual urgent care at Virtua Health, and Cedar Wang, vice president of nursing operations at Holy Name Medical Center. Together, they're sharing insights from their careers, their involvement in the New Jersey APP Transition to Practice program, and how this initiative is transforming onboarding, support, and retention of new providers. Cedar and Dodi, thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Thank you, Stephanie.
It would be wonderful if you could share with us, maybe starting off with you, Cedar, a little bit about your background, your position, and how you got here.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. I am a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for almost 30 years, and I currently serve as the vice president of nursing operations at Holy Name Medical Center in Teaneck, New Jersey, where I also have the privilege of serving as a nurse practitioner on our hospice team. And I started my career at a large university medical center as a registered nurse, like many, and quickly learned that I wanted to further my education and went to graduate school, landed my first job at the same university as a nurse practitioner, mostly because there was a shortage of residents at the time in anesthesia. So my first job, even though my degree was in gerontological primary care, I wound up serving in the Department of Anesthesia at a large university medical center. And that was a particular challenge because I was treated as a resident. I had very little onboarding specific to the NP role, but because I had practiced there as a registered nurse for a time, it was a fairly smooth transition with the systems and people involved. So I think many nurse practitioners find themselves in that situation, especially if they work at the same organization where they worked as a registered nurse. But that also leads to some significant challenges, which we also see here. And one of the reasons why we're here today to talk about this great program that we have started in New Jersey with the transition to practice for advanced practice providers. As a new nurse practitioner, even though you may have experience as a registered nurse, the practice environment and expectations are very different. And for example, you may be very familiar with the other caregiver team, but they don't see you as a provider. So making that transition takes some nuances. So you have to navigate some nuances and learn what it's like to provide orders for your colleagues to follow. So I think that looking at the professionalism of nurse practitioners is really important in any onboarding program, like the one that we're currently involved in.
Dodi, would you also mind sharing with us a little bit about your current role, your title, your organization, and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Dodi Iannaco. I'm our lead nurse practitioner for Virtua Urgent Care. So that's our network of 8 urgent care centers. In that part of my role, I see patients and I lead our team of nurse practitioners, which is about a little over 40 people right now. I have a secondary role, which is our nurse practitioner student program coordinator. So in that role, I support NP students. I place them with preceptors. I support our preceptors. I do some teaching and I support our new to practice advanced practice providers. How I got here, I've been a nurse for a long time, and I've actually been a nurse practitioner for quite a long time. And I've been with Virtua for almost 28 years, so a really long time. So I think some of the things that I do, I mean, I love being a nurse practitioner, taking care of patients, being a team leader. The reason I have the secondary part of my role is because I kept asking for, what else can I do? What else can I do? What is next for me? And we have a affiliation with Rowan University. And that's why I have the secondary part of my role. So, and Virtua, I'll just give you like a tiny tidbit. So Virtua Health is an academic health system that is essentially committed to helping the people of South Jersey and beyond to be well, get well, and stay well. We provide the complete spectrum of advanced, accessible, trusted care. We have 5 hospitals. So in addition to those 5 hospitals, we have 2 satellite emergency rooms. We have 42 ambulatory surgical centers. We have more than 400 other locations. And we bring health services directly to the region through hospital at home, physical therapy and rehab, home care, paramedics. It's pretty big. And we have about somewhere over 14,000 employees at this time.
Yes, that is definitely pretty big.
Yeah.
Could you frame for us how it is that you two know each other, Dodi and Cedar, so that they can understand the context of which this conversation is coming?
Yeah. So Cedar is with Holy Name. And, she is the person there that is the program lead for the New Jersey Collaborative Center for Nursing and this APP Transition to Practice program. So when we meet with the collaborative, and we met in person back in the fall to kick off our strategy for, kicking off this program at our organizations. So we do get to support each other and really talk about any issues that affect our advanced practice providers, but also what we're doing with the program and how things are going. And, do we have feedback for each other or even ideas for each other to help support each other along the way?
So almost as a summary, each of you has a similar opportunity in your respective organizations to be able to take the APP transition program and implement it. And then this also provides a community for yourselves as well to be able to learn from each other as your cohorts are learning from each other, but at a different stage in a different kind of environment.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Cedar, do you have any specific memory or specific stories of your onboarding process that led to some of the ways that you facilitated the current program?
Yes, for sure. I think defining roles and responsibility of an advanced practice provider versus a physician versus a registered nurse is really important. When I transitioned into my first role, I think my attending physician wasn't the fact that I had an attending physician in the first place makes me seem like a resident. Didn't really understand the autonomy of my role, which was different than a resident. And I think one of the things that experience has taught me now is to be very intentional about defining what is the role of an advanced practice provider in the hospital setting or in a clinic setting, and to be explicit not only with the other providers, but also with the other staff involved.
So the experience of providers now is different from the experience you had then. Would you be able to share a little bit about how some of those things, such as clarifying roles and responsibilities, have transitioned the experience that you had into the experience that nurses, advanced practice nurses are having now?
I think the role of the advanced practice nurse now is much better understood than it was 25 years ago. There's just more of us out there participating in diverse roles across the healthcare continuum. So that has certainly helped both patients and providers have a better understanding of an APN's role.
And aside from role clarity, are there any other areas where you can see that there's been a big difference or a big shift in the way that NPs have been onboarded in the last, several generations of NPs as they enter the workforce?
That's a good question. I might want to hear Dodi's answer on that.
So, organizations are hiring more and more advanced practice providers into all different areas, much more than years past. And I think that without the program, people can go into these specialties and they may not have support that they need. They're going to have a peer group, they're going to have physicians that they work with, but they really won't get, or they may not get intricate support that they'll get with our program. They meet monthly with a cohort of people that are new in their areas, and they develop friendships there. They have people they can reach out to, and they know that it's really like a safe space to discuss any concerns that they have.
That's amazing.
Thank you for that reminder. It makes me think about how we have evolved into a discipline where we're looking more at specialty, and many nurse practitioners are going into specialty areas. And there has never been, I think until now, an intentional onboarding process for a particular specialty. So, for example, in my story, I went to a primary care program and then ended up in the hospital setting in a highly specialized role, but didn't have, other than a broad background in physical assessment and diagnosis and treatment, I didn't really have a broad a narrow focus on a particular specialty. So the beauty of the newer onboarding programs, like the one we're involved in now, we have those specialty specific pathways to bring people up to speed on that specialty in very quickly, leveraging the broad base that they have as advanced practice providers.
Dodi, you shared something super cool in there, Dodi, which is that you have kind of two elements of this great practice that you have as a nurse practitioner, part of which is your own rich history as a nurse practitioner of 28 years you're sharing at Virtua, and then the other half being the work you do in support of other nurse practitioners, kind of across the spectrum of the life cycle of nurse practitioners coming in throughout their practice as their coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So would you be able to share with us a little bit about what are new NPs experiencing today as they transition into practice? And if you don't mind also reflecting on what you've seen that new transition as it is now compared to what it was maybe when you first started out or for some of your other nurses.
Yeah, sure. So in many organizations, NPs and PAs, so, we might say advanced practice providers or APPs, they're hired directly into specialty areas. So depending on the service line, the organization or practice, their orientation can really vary greatly. It can be a few weeks in certain areas, or it can be a few months if they're going into maybe like critical care or something like that. And honestly, in the specialties, things develop over time where urgent care might do something, primary care might do something, inpatient may have built something, but not all areas have like a defined plan. So with this program, our new advanced practice providers will have a supportive environment and a peer group with whom they can grow and develop in their first year of practice. And we're really working to create a safe space for them to bring questions and concerns and really have that peer group. So I became a nurse practitioner a long time ago. It was 2003. So it was 22 years ago that I became an NP. And at that time, there really was not a lot of jobs for NPs in large organizations, large healthcare organizations. So my first role, I was lucky that I had a good orientation. I had a really nice peer group. I felt supported to ask questions and work with the team. The position itself wasn't real intricate. It wasn't like a really heavy specialty or anything. And something fun is that we joined a group that was called the Philadelphia Area Nurse Practitioners Group at the time. So we attended a lot of local dinner programs and got to hang out together and form that peer group. And it was a lot of fun. I look back fondly on that time.
And at that time, you were saying that you had a cohort, you had a great experience coming in. What was your experience like working with the other healthcare practitioners in your unit and the areas you worked, maybe folks who weren't as familiar with NPs. What was that experience like at the time you started?
It was good. The role was in a pre-admission testing area. So we had, anesthesiologists that we worked with. Like we were essentially preparing patients for surgery. We would get the patient's history, why they're coming in for surgery, their meds, their allergies, their concerns. And we were really queuing them up for the day of surgery. We would do lab work and, EKGs, and we worked really well with our anesthesia team. They were looking to see, to look at the patient's airway. Have they ever had reactions to anesthesia? So it was a good team, which is great though, because people need that new, when you're coming into something new, you need that supportive environment. If you don't have that, it's just not good. It's not a good feeling.
And let's dive into the APP Transition into Practice program then. Dodi, could you give us a bit of a detailed overview about the structure and the components of the program?
Yes. So with the New Jersey Collaborating Center for Nursing, this program has two main pieces. So we have the clinical education in the specialty area through ThriveAP, and then we have the on-site non-clinical business and operational aspect of healthcare program supported by Vizient. So the attendees that are part of ThriveAP, they're getting these weekly education sessions that are tailored to their specialty. They're presented by content experts, by folks that are actively working in that specialty, and they're really developing clinical knowledge in their areas. And then the attendees of the non-clinical program, they form a peer group. They meet monthly. They're getting education, they're getting discussions on various topics, and those topics are things that affect current practice, and they're also tailored to the organization.
So building from the general foundational curriculum and then into the particular specialties and the particular organizational nuances, have there been any areas of feedback that you've received, any ways that the NPs and APPs have been able to share that this program has been valuable?
Yes. Yeah. Feedback has been truly positive. I have a couple little quotes that I will read. So one participant reported that the review of pathophysiology is detailed and very helpful now that she is practicing as a nurse practitioner. Having the opportunity to hear from experienced advanced practice providers is refreshing. The chance to have conversations and ask questions is so beneficial. So that's more specific to the Thrive portion. And then what she said about the on-site portion is that being part of the program with others that I work with helps to open doors to conversations at work. It gives us something to build camaraderie through. So I think they're enjoying it. I mean, our group is relatively small at this time, and it will grow with an additional cohort, likely in the summer. But I think that they're getting this clinical content and support, and then they're getting this kind of like operational business, healthcare, even self-care. Like they're getting this additional content and forming that peer group and that safe space to bring their concerns.
I love how in that feedback, it was also mentioned the conversation they get to have with the experienced APPs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have several nurse practitioners and physician's assistants involved in various programs, including cardiology, intensive care, or critical care rather, family medicine, geriatrics, and particularly the critical care providers have provided a lot of feedback on how helpful it is for them, because that's certainly not something that they got, that high level skill. And it's also a field that's evolving. So they're being brought up to speed very quickly on the latest and greatest technologies, therapeutics, and treatments that are in the market today. So they've received great feedback on that. The lectures offered are very relevant and timely, so they are able to apply them very quickly to their clinical practice.
And have you had any feedback about how the way the team is able to function in the critical care space has changed by being able to get the nurse practitioners that early exposure, that deeper exposure to the specialty, and to the colleagues they'd be working with in the specialty areas?
So we have a cohort of critical care APPs that are involved in the program. And the fact that the program offers live classes and that cohort environment has strengthened their teamwork on the unit. Even if they're not working together every day, they're still experiencing the same things both inside and outside of work, meaning that they're doing the courses outside of their regular work environment, but they're experiencing the same thing, learning the same things, able to discuss and apply what they're learning real time to the cases that they're seeing every day. So that camaraderie has been a wonderful benefit of this program.
That's amazing. Have you been receiving any feedback or any commentary from these experienced APPs about how they see that the program is preparing the new APPs?
Not yet. No, that's a good question, but I haven't heard much yet. I know, honestly, a couple of my people on my urgent care team are in the ThriveAP program. So I guess as their leader, I really think that they're getting this like intense, up-to-date clinical education, which I think is great. I think it's too early to see how confident they're going to be, but I mean, that's what we expect. We expect it to increase their confidence. We expect good productivity, good clinical care, and we really hope that it improves retention as well.
And so for APPs that are coming into practice now, do you feel like it's relatively common, or do you feel like it has to be really established within the organization to be able to have that kind of experience that you have?
I think it depends where the person's going, what kind of position they're taking, how the person plans to develop their skills in that area, and, is their team leader or their boss, how can that person help them? And really even, how much has that team or department hired new people? And how have they supported them in the past?
Are there any other differences that you see from the transition into practice from when you first started, or any of the other nurses who are a little bit more experienced now compared to the practitioners that are coming into the field today? Any other differences that you see in the way that they transition into practice?
I think there's just more. There's so much more than we used to have years ago. And they're going into like a variety of areas. I think that's the biggest thing, is that truly the numbers of advanced practice providers that we're hiring is much, much more than it used to be.
And are there any differences in the relationships with the other care team members, with physicians, with respiratory therapists, with anybody else that the APPs may be interacting with?
I think those interpersonal relationships and like, team communication, I think it's much better than it used to be. I do think, and this, of course, is my opinion, but I think that people understand the role of the advanced practice provider much more than they did years ago. I think we've come a long way in that. That has really changed through the years.
And Cedar, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what Vizient is and the role of Vizient in the program?
Sure. So Vizient provides us with content that we're able to deliver over to facilitate a cohort that meets monthly of newly onboarded providers, advanced practice providers, and they provide evaluation, a format for evaluating the content that we're delivering, as well as the cohort experience. All of the instruction and the materials that they have provided have been really timely, professionally done, and gives us the basis. Then it provides a framework for us to individualize the content to our particular organization. It's kind of like writing. When you go to write something, it's great if you already have an outline. So what Vizient has provided for us is an outline that then we're able to fill in and adapt to the culture of our organization, to our unique needs, and ensure that we're going to meet our APPs right where they're at and with what they need.
So it sounds like it's really helping establish a strong foundational curriculum from which your organization is able to build and make sure that each APTN is able to really feel confident and competent as they walk into their practice.
Absolutely. And we've already seen how it's not only good for APPs, it's also good for any provider transitioning to our organization. In fact, we're about to launch for the first time a graduate medical education program this summer. So as we speak, we're putting together our orientation plan, our institutional orientation for these residents that are going to be onboarded. And we plan to utilize some of the Vizient content for that because it's been so well received by our APPs, and we see the benefit and the polish that it gives our program right from the very beginning.
That's wonderful. So Dodi, from your perspective, what has been your experience with Vizient and with Cedar in the creation of this program and the running of the program?
It's much like Cedar said, that the content that's provided, it really sets the stage for us to prepare slides and discussions for our group. And really, they're tailored to our individual organizations. We can pull in subject matter experts from throughout the organization to discuss their areas of expertise, and it's like exciting and fun to lead these discussions and just create that supportive environment for our new APPs. It's been really good.
That's amazing.
Another benefit of having a transition to practice program for APPs, we're finding, is in recruitment. We are recruiting many brand new graduate APPs, and their first questions are, what is my orientation going to be like? How many different people am I going to be paired with? How long do I get in the onboarding process? So to be able to come to them with a very well thought out year-long plan of support is a fantastic recruitment tool. And I expect we will also see a great impact on the retention of these APPs and their productivity. So these are all things that we're looking to evaluate and measure to ensure that we're making a good investment in our APPs, not just to keep them, but also recognizing how this program will impact patient care. And we expect that we're going to see a great benefit on both sides.
That's wonderful. And you had mentioned some compelling statistics about APP retention and the rapid growth of the NP field. Could you elaborate a bit about that and what those things signify?
I think it shows that there is a great need for more providers in the healthcare market. That's evident with our aging population, with the complexity of illness, the ways that we intervene and treat chronic conditions now. These are all aspects of our current healthcare market that we see APPs fill a great role. And I think as advanced practice providers, there's also a holistic view that they're looking at the patient with. And it's helpful. It's going to be very important to ensure that APPs, regardless of the specialty, are well trained and able to adapt to the latest and greatest therapies to be able to provide their patients with the best of the best so that we can improve the health of society in general. So I think that the boom that we're seeing in advanced practice providers is going to continue. And with all of these flooding the market, it's even more important that we as leaders are intentional about how we train them, how well we support them, and ensure that we are delivering a high quality. Because one thing that's, we don't like to speak about is that with all of these APPs flooding the market, that means there are more programs generating APPs. And the quality and consistency with which that's done has been questioned in even mainstream media lately. So I think that it's important as a discipline, as a nursing profession, that we provide a good standard approach to how we onboard these individuals.
Yeah, so currently there's a shortage of physicians. So as there have been less and less physicians, especially going into primary care, there's been a rapid growth of advanced practice providers, specifically for NPs and PAs. I mean, we see midwives as well, more and more, that can help with women's healthcare and in the labor and delivery environment. But advanced practice providers provide this expanded access, for patients. We can improve access and get patients in quicker. More and more new to practice APPs will be graduating with, each year, mostly each May, but sometimes in the winter as well, and coming into the workforce. And those numbers of NPs and PAs are predicted to grow by 66% for NPs and 37% for PAs within the next 10 years. So there's going to be a lot more advanced practice providers in the workforce in the years ahead.
And more need for programs like yours.
Yes. More need absolutely for support, engagement, organizational enculturation, like learning about the organization, meeting leaders in the organization, knowing that they're supported, and truly knowing that they're valued.
Speaking of the media and speaking of how the perception of training comes together, do you see a lot of confusion about the role of APPs still, despite the fact that progress has been made in educating and informing both the healthcare community as well as patients of the roles of APPs?
Absolutely. I think it not only patients wonder what an APP can do, but providers and other members of the healthcare team have a definite, there is a discrepancy sometimes in how the role is interpreted. I believe that as part of this program, our APPs will not only come out more competent, but better able to articulate how they can help patients and serve a very vital role in the healthcare team.
And that's so critical, as you said, as we're coming into the workforce and APPs are really prevalent and we want to be able to work at the highest level of our license. Dodi, do you have any experiences that maybe you've heard of that are from NPs who are transitioning into practice in a facility that does not have a program like this? Would you be able to, for our listeners, give a little bit of a compare and contrast of what it could be if you don't have this type of supportive program?
Yeah, I think, what we have last week we talked about like well-being and burnout in our on-site program, and these are new grads, so they didn't, this is their first role as nurse practitioners. But we talked about people that they know that have maybe left jobs because they were burnout or they didn't feel supported. And it's definitely mentioned that, when people don't feel supported, whether it's a RN role or a nurse practitioner role or physician assistant role, when you don't have that support and you just don't feel like it's a healthy environment for you, a lot of times you're going to leave. So we heard about some of those stories. I'm glad that we haven't, I haven't heard that kind of stuff at Virtua Health, not in years. And I think that this program will really alleviate or, lessen those kind of things. Because it's truly creating this, this supportive environment where people can learn and they know that they're valued. That's really important too.
And speaking of value, I'd love to hear if you're able to share some of the ways you were able to help your organization get on board. If we had any other nurse leaders out there who are hoping to convince their organization that a APP transition program is, really a great investment, how would you share that, direction with somebody?
Yeah, I mean that, what, we were talking to ThriveAP and then through the collaborative with Vizient as well for a lot of time last year. So in 2024, honestly, Thrive, I was talking to like in 2023. So it took a long time. I think with the collaborative though, it's nice to know that other organizations are going through this with us. And it's really nice for Cedar and I to kind of have each other. I mean, we're in very different areas and doing different things, but we can talk about how the program is going and we can work together, kind of plan together. I really think though, as a new grad, I mean, it was a long time ago. So, and jobs were very different and scarce at the time. So I guess I'm just lucky that I, went into somewhere where I felt really supported and had a good team. New graduates want that though. When I interview people, honestly, I tell them how we're going to orient them. But if I didn't tell them, they're going to ask me. They should be asking, like, what is orientation like? How will I be supported? is there additional education for me? They should be asking those questions in their interview so that they don't come into a position and be blindsided when they don't have support or they don't feel, valued or important to the team, because they really are important. Of course, I think that nurse practitioners and physician assistants are amazing, So I really want these folks coming into Virtua to feel that support and feel valued and feel celebrated and recognized. I am really excited that we're doing this program. Still in its infancy for us, but it's going to make a huge difference.
You started getting into just the value and the beauty of being an NP and what NPs can bring to the table.
Yeah.
Could you just wax poetic for us for a second about where you see the value of NPs truly?
Yeah. I mean, I think that with less physicians, right, and certainly less physicians going into primary care roles, nurse practitioners and physician assistants really help to fill that gap. Especially in potentially rural areas where there's really not a lot of physicians, and the advanced practice providers can truly help with that. We can provide expanded access to patients, particularly in different areas, and really more and more new to practice NPs and PAs are going to be joining the workforce. And look, the numbers of NPs and PAs are predicted to grow by 66% and 37% respectively by 2034. And in most areas, advanced practice providers are doing a very similar thing to what the physicians are doing. Like, we supplement our physician team, we work with our physician team, except in surgery, which is different. We're really, in a lot of areas, we're doing the same work that our physicians are doing. So we work collaboratively, and I think patients really appreciate us when they get to know us. They know that we focus on them as a patient, but we want to know, and this is different in different specialties, but even for my patients in urgent care, I want to know, what's bringing them in, what are they concerned about, who else is sick, their history, and then figure out how I can help them in that visit and that day. Primary care is a lot different, where you're really getting to know that person and their family and their goals, their health goals, their worries. And you really get to take care of the whole patient, and, that extends to their family as well.
That's beautiful. And what a great highlight of how APPs step into the space of providing care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you were talking to some NP students who are looking at graduating or looking at enrolling with a program or becoming employed, looking at hiring with an organization, what would you tell them about the value of an institution that has APP transition programs?
I would tell them that the more support they get when they're new, the better. So having a program like this where they're really going to get clinical education, additional clinical education, right, past their academic program, and the on-site support, peer support, and additional education, I think it's very, very valuable. Just someone that we just hired, not in my specialty, but into another specialty, I told her that there's a advanced practice provider transition to practice program, and then I would be inviting her. And she was really, really excited to be part of it and realize that she's going to have a group of peers that she gets to meet and gets the support through the first year.
That's wonderful. I can't imagine how important it is to be able to have that community, because it's really different going from being an experienced nurse to going back to being a brand new nurse, in a sense, a new nurse with a different scope. So I think that support sounds like it's invaluable.
Yeah. I really am excited about it, though. It's when I told this girl, she was like, "What? We have that? We're doing that?" Like, oh my gosh. So I think it's great. It's going to make a huge difference for folks.
It sounds like it already is.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dodi and Cedar. We appreciate your time and all of the insights you have to share. Thank you again. And we do like to ask one final question of all of our nurses. Dodi, as you are a nurse, as you're a giving person, as you share with both your colleagues and the nurses coming in under you, the student NPs and APPs, how is it that you take care of yourself? How is it that you fill your cup?
That is a very good question. For me, it is about doing things that make me happy, right? Doing things that help me to relax. So that really might be spending time outside, exercising, eating healthy, trying to get good sleep consistently. And, in the summer, I will be at the beach as much as possible, as much as my skin will tolerate and as much as possible, or at least at the shore to get some sunshine and some walks. And, just focusing on self-care, recognizing too when you're exhausted or when you're working too much extra. And of course, having family support. And for me, some time with my pets is important. All those type of things.
That's wonderful. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Nursing Insights podcast.